And welcome to today's class, Science Prodigy session 18. Our topic is weather and climate for today. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll get started. So let's share my screen and get ready with the warm-up. Now, I would like to say, for those who are new, of course, that please, we have a couple of rules, so please follow them. Our first rule is always have proper etiquette. Make sure that you are using manners. If you have a question, you can type it in the chat and you can raise your hand in participants. If you have a comment, you can type that in the chat. So our classes go like this. We always start off with our warm-up. Those are a couple of questions from our last class. So our last class, session 17, was on cells. So you only have to do one warm-up. And so you only have to do one warm-up. You can either do warm-up 1, warm-up 2, or warm-up 3. After about 2 minutes, we'll go over the warm-up answers. If you have an answer in the participants, you can raise your hand. And then we'll go on with class. I will teach today's lesson, and what we will do in the lesson is, we will talk about today's lesson, which is weather and climate. After talking about it, we'll always have a quiz. The quiz is usually 20 questions. You have about 5 to 10 minutes to take the quiz. We'll always go out over the quiz after the quiz, and then there will usually be a demonstration or a game. And after that, there's the poll, and then the class is ended. Okay, so I'll give you guys 1 more minute for the warm up. One more thing, if you did not come to last class, you do not have to do the warm-up, but you can always try. Okay then, let's go over the warm-up. So if you have an answer in the participants, you can raise your hand. So we have, for warm-up 1, raise your hands in participants if you have an answer. Name 3 differences between the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Okay. So let's ask Shrivant, what's your answer? Sorry. Okay, so then I'll just ask Aryan, what's your question? What's your answer?
My answer is that eukaryotic has a nucleus, prokaryotic doesn't, and eukaryotic doesn't usually have a cell wall, but sometimes they do in plants, and they also have membranes, and I don't think that prokaryote have one.
That's great. Those are all examples that are differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. You could have also said that usually organisms only have one prokaryotic cell. They're usually unicellular, whereas eukaryotic cells are usually in multicellular organisms. You could have also said, just as Aryan had said, some differences between the organelles. Usually that the eukaryotic cells have cell membranes, cell walls, and usually they can also have, for example, a chloroplast, or prokaryotic cells don't have nucleuses, eukaryotic cells do. So all all those examples that you have said are correct. So does anyone have an answer for warm-up 2? Name 5 organelles from an animal cell. Okay, Swarnika, what's your answer? You have an answer?
So the first one is lysosome.
Good.
Next is vacuole. Endoplasmic reticulum, rough ear,
Yes.
smooth ear, mitochondrion, and the Golgi apparatus.
That's perfect. You got 5 and all of those 5 are correct. The endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, but you could have also said the nucleus. You could have also said a centriole. You could have said a cell membrane. So all of those are correct. Okay, now last one, warm up number 3. What does the chloroplast in the plant cell do? Name at least 2 jobs. Okay. Kamlesh, what's your answer?
My answer is food. The chloroplast in the plant cell gives food and water to the plant.
Do you have another job? Do you have another, so do you know what else the chloroplast does?
It gives like.
That's okay. So it might have been a little bit tricky, but it's okay. So if you guys remember what chloroplast has chlorophyll inside it, which makes the plant green. So chloroplast makes the plant green because it contains chlorophyll, which is a green pigment. The second job is that without chloroplast, you cannot have photosynthesis. Okay, so chloroplasts are needed for photosynthesis. Okay, now that was the warm-up. Let's go on to today's lesson. Our lesson is on weather and climate. So what is weather and what is climate? Weather is the condition of the environment at any time, such as the temperature, cloud cover, fog conditions, air pressure, humidity, and precipitation. So usually you can think of weather as the condition at any time. Like, for example, 4:58 p.m. on Tuesday. What's the weather then? That might be different than 7:50 in the morning on Friday. It might be different. So today the weather might be sunny with a clear sky, and tomorrow there might be clouds and rain. So weather is a specific event like a rainstorm or a hot day that happens over a few hours, days, or weeks. But climate is longer. A climate is a long-term pattern of weather conditions. It's the average pattern of weather conditions taken over a period of time, say 30 years for a particular region. So for example, we have the Mediterranean region, which is like Greece and Italy. So that has a different climate than, for example, a climate which is dry. So a dry climate will usually have a different climate. For example, the average temperature will be way higher than the temperature in, for example, a polar area. The polar climates, those will be very low temperatures, and in a dry climate, they'll usually be pretty high. And snow, rain, humidity, and wind will also be completely different. But so you can think of climate like weather, but over a long time. So weather and climate, take a look outside your window. You can try looking out right now. Is it hot and sunny or cloudy and rainy? Is there snow on the ground? When you look out the window, you can see what the weather is, just like today. So for example, when I look out my window, I see that the weather is pretty cloudy. So right now, the weather for me is cloudy. But for example, on the other side of the world, the weather could be really sunny and it can change. So for example, mine might change quickly to a windy weather, and then yours might quickly change to a rainy weather. So it can always change whenever. You never know the exact date unless you have satellites, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So weather is only temporary. For example, a blizzard, which is like a snowstorm, can turn into a flood after just a few warm spring days. Climate, on the other hand, is more than just a few warm and cool days. Climate describes the typical weather conditions in an entire region for a very, very long time, 30 years or more, which is a long time. So keeping an eye on changing weather can help us plan ahead. So for example, using satellites, we can quickly notice that there's a hurricane forming and is coming our way. Then we'll know to pack our bags, to evacuate our homes, and to get somewhere safe just before a big hurricane strikes us and we'll be in danger. So we know that if thunderclouds are forming, it's probably a good idea to stay inside. But it's also important to keep an eye on Earth's climate too. Keeping track of Earth's sea level is one way that we know how quickly the climate is changing, climate change. As the Earth's climate warms, ice in Antarctica and Greenland is melting. This causes the level of oceans to rise. We also know that the changes in the number, size, or location of clouds could be caused by a change in Earth's climate. It is very important to keep an eye on our planet and always changing. And that's what NASA satellites are for. NASA satellites are always orbiting Earth. So if you guys remember from our solar system lesson, we remember what orbiting is. It goes in a complete orbit around the Earth. So it's in a straight path it's usually a round shape around a specific satellite. So a satellite is usually orbiting, usually it can be a planet, but it can also be a star. So looking down at the ocean and clouds, the NASA satellites will always monitor our climate. It'll always know if, for example, California here is going to be rainy and sunny, rainy and cloudy, or on the other side of the world, for example, Japan will be really sunny and hot. So it's always good to have satellites and other ways to monitor our weather and our climate as well. So let's look at the big differences. Weather is the changes in the atmosphere that occurs on a daily basis. The weather we experience today could be completely different than the weather tomorrow. The weather of a particular region keeps on changing every day depending on temperature, rainfall, and wind conditions. If we see weather is similar to your mood on a day, then climate is like your overall personality. So for example, if when I wake up, I'm on like a grumpy mood, I don't want to be woken up, I don't want to do anything, I just want to stay in bed. So that might be like my weather, but my climate is like my personality. If I have a nice personality, if I like talking to people, if my hobbies are, for example, coloring, if I like sports. So it really matters that weather can be like your mood, but climate can be like your personality, who you are. But what is climate like truly? Climate is a pattern of weather that occurs over a long time, such as years and centuries. For example, the climate in an area could be dry in that it rarely rains there. However, on days when it does rain, the weather is rainy for that day. The climate doesn't change. It's still a dry climate, but the climate would show the long-term behavior of the weather in that region. So let's, for example, take a specific place. So let's say we have Africa. So let's say right at the very top of Africa, we have Egypt. We've all heard of Egypt. This is a rough drawing. So let's say this is Egypt. So it's right close to the equator, which we talked about in a past lesson, which is the center, like the middle of the earth, and it's usually the hottest there. But it's also covered by the Sahara Desert. So let me quickly just draw Africa here. So if this is Africa, for example, then all of this is a desert. This is the Sahara Desert. And what that means is that all of this area is hot. It has a dry climate. But for example, let's say that Egypt is experiencing on this local weather. On Monday, it's pretty hot and sunny. But let's say on Tuesday, it's also very hot and sunny. Wednesday, it's rainy. Thursday, it's also rainy. And Friday, it's hot and sunny. Now, let's say this is June, for example, okay? And this is June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, okay? But let's say that in the whole year of, for example, 2020, it only rains on June 3rd and 4th, only on these 2 days of the whole year. The rest of the days, it's usually cloudy or sunny. Does that mean that it's always a dry climate? Or does that mean that it's not a dry climate because it had rained? Well, it means that it is a dry climate. So let's say that climate is, so let's say that the average, so how many sunny days were there? So if we just think about it, let's take a average of like 200 sunny days. 2 rainy days, that's 202. And we have 154 days which are cloudy. That is 356 days, that's 1 year. But what's the average? So if we find the average, we're just gonna add them all together, and then we're just going to find out what's our mean. So we'll talk, that's like a math topic. That's more of a math topic. But if we think about it, most of the days are here and here. So it's definitely not a wet climate. It's not a rainy climate or something. It's not a tropical climate. But is it like a humidish climate, or is it more dry? But if we take our average, we can think of it as a Mediterranean climate. It's not too dry. It's not extremely dry, but it's not all that cloudy either. It's not that wet. It's not that polar. It's not that tropical. It's just a Mediterranean climate. So we'll talk more about the Mediterranean climate. So what makes up our weather system? So if we can say the weather is sunshiny, so it's sunny, it's rainy, it's cloudy, it's very windy, it's snowing, there's lots of flood, it's lightning, there's lightning outside, there's a heat wave, there's snowstorms and blizzards, thunders and dust storms, etc. So different places in the world usually have different kinds of weather. For example, San Diego and in California is warm and sunny for much of the year, while others, like tropical rainforests in Indonesia, get rain almost every day. But of course, we have some that are cold and snowy for most of the year, like Alaska or in Russia. So we can either have, like in our weather, it's hot, it's warm, it's cold, it's sunny, cloudy, it's an overcast, rainy or snowy. And then we can also have more in depth. We have it's hailing, there's thunder, rain and snowing, thunderstorm, there's frost, it's like a freeze, there's lots of dew, it's foggy, etc. So what causes weather? Weather processes such as wind, clouds, and precipitation are a result of the atmosphere responding to uneven heating of the Earth by the sun. So this can cause temperature differences, which in turn cause air currents like wind to develop, which then move heat from where there is more heat, which is higher temperatures, to where there is less heat. So we can think of our atmosphere like a heat engine, a humongous giant heat engine, which is driven by the sun. High and low pressure areas, wind, cloud, and precipitation systems are all caused either directly or indirectly by the uneven heating and the resulting heat distribution processes. There are two main modes of the heat redistribution. There is the vertical heat transport and horizontal heat transport. So we already know, hopefully, if you guys didn't know, that vertical is up to down and horizontal is left to right. So we can think of that the way that we find horizontal, the way to remember it, this is a quick way to remember horizontal is from left to right because it has the word horizon in it. And if you know what a horizon is, if you go to the beach, for example, and you look as far as you can in the ocean, we see a line, that end, that's it. We cannot see more than that edge. So that's the horizon. So the horizon goes from left to right, right to left. So we can also think of as horizontal, like that. So the vertical heat transport is, of course, up and down. The solar heating of the Earth's surface makes the atmosphere unstable, causing vertical air currents to develop. This causes puffy-looking clouds, showers and rain, and thunderstorm to form in warm air masses, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Because the Earth is a sphere, it receives more sunlight in the tropics, which is like the equator, and less sunlight towards the poles. This causes horizontal temperature differences to develop, which in turn causes air pressure differences, leading to wind that transports heat from the top tropics to high latitudes. So if we think of it, a way to remember this, it's a kind of funny way, is latitude, fatitude. So latitude is this, latitude, latitude. So it's going to be around, for example, your stomach, you can have it around. So if we have our Earth here, this is a quick way, it's a fun way to remember latitude and what is longitude. So if this is our Earth, right? There are these lines in the middle. And then we have these lines here. So there are lines of latitude and lines of longitude. So we already know the middle one is the equator and that this middle one is the prime meridian. We talked about that in a previous lesson. But what are these other lines? So these are lines of longitude and these are lines of latitude. So we already know that because this is the equator and the equator is a line of latitude, like if this Earth is like a stomach, latitude, fatitude. So what makes it fat? It's these parts. So we can think of latitude as going around here and longitude from up to down. And this is the equator. This is the Tropic of Capricorn. And this is the Tropic of Cancer. So by knowing what latitude is, that latitude is in fact horizontal and longitude is vertical. That's why we know that verticals usually are this way as longitude, and latitude is the opposite way, which is which is how we know that the tropics can have completely different weathers than north and south poles. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we can see that if this is our Earth, we have our net radiation surplus, which is an excess, too much net radiation. Some of it is lost towards the poles, and some of it is lost outways. So the vertical transfer is radiation, convection, conduction, and latent heat. We talked about the first three in our previous lessons. If you weren't there, then it's posted on our Facebook page. You can check it out. And horizontal transfer include winds, hurricanes and depression, and ocean currents. So what if, for example, you're going to study about the Earth's atmosphere? What are you studying? It's called meteorology. Meteorology is a major branch of Earth science. So people who study meteorology are called meteorologists. They record air pressure, wind speed and direction, temperature, humidity, etc. I'm going to just go over the main important parts, which are that they use data to understand weather, and they are the ones who predict the weather. That's why on the news, you see the weatherman talking about we have showers here later on today. How do they get that? They predict it based on our weathers and the weather forecast, which is given from satellites. So meteorologists study the weather and try to predict it. Predicting is not as easy. So there are many factors and variables involved. That's why predictions are not always accurate. So for example, forecasts predicting when and where hurricanes will occur allow people who might be affected to prepare for a storm. That's why we have satellites, which also help. So weather forecasts also help people who work in agriculture, in pollution control agencies, and in the aviation, which is usually flying planes. And when you want to travel from country to country, if you want to land in a place where it's raining, it's very cloudy, it might be very hard. That's why usually plane flights are between good weather areas. Okay, so this is a very important slide it talks about different things to predict the weather. So let's talk about one of the most important ones, which is the barometer. So the barometer measures the pressure of air. If the air pressure is rising or getting higher, the weather will be mild and calm. If the air pressure is falling, the weather is going to be rainy or stormy. Now, we've all heard of a thermometer. That measures our temperature when we are sick, but it's actually mainly used for the weather. A thermometer measures the temperature of the air. Now we have a sling psychrometric. It measures the humidity in the air, not 100%. So there are other instruments that help to measure humidity, but one example is the sling psychrometric. Now we have our windsock, which tells which direction our wind is blowing. Is it blowing southwest? Is it blowing north? Is it blowing southeast? It's all because of our windsock. Our rain gauge measures how much rain is falling to the ground, like our precipitation in inches or centimeters. Our anemometer measures how fast the wind is blowing. Our weather satellites and computers track the weather patterns from our satellites, which are usually orbiting our Earth. So that is how they collect the data for weather forecasters to use it. And we have our radar, which is an electronic instrument to track how much precipitation is falling, where is it falling, which direction it's moving in, but it can also track tornadoes, hurricanes, and other types of storms. So that was like an example of a satellite. Now, this is very important. It's a Doppler radar, and you will hear it in the future. A weather radar is a type of radar which is used to show where precipitation is. Weather radar can tell the movement of precipitation, what type it is, for examples, rain, snow, and hail, and forecast its future. Modern weather radars are usually Doppler radars, which can find the movement of raindrops and the intensity of the precipitation. So how do we get the Doppler radar? It gets it from the Doppler effect. So have you ever listened to a train whistle as it was coming towards you? You probably should have noticed, if you have ever been at a train station, that the pitch of the whistle changed as this train passed and moved away. Like it was a high pitch or a low pitch. This change in the frequency of sound is called the Doppler effect. The Doppler radar measures the change in the frequency of the signal it receives to determine the wind. Okay, so how does it work? We have our radar pulse, our reflectivity, and our velocity. So this is kind of intermediate. You guys can learn it later. So because I'm just going to give you a basic explanation on the Doppler radar, but you will learn it later, probably in 6th grade. So you guys are this is very advanced for you guys. We have our next generation radar. The National Weather Service has installed a new type of Doppler radar called NEXRAD radar. NEXRAD stands for Next Generation Radar. This radar produces many different views of storm and rain that kind of allows meteorologists to determine if a storm could be severe. Now, this is very important as well, weather forecasting terms. So an air mass is a large volume of air having fairly uniform characteristics of temperature, atmospheric pressure, and water vapor contact. It covers many hundreds or thousands of square miles and slowly change in accordance with the terrain they are over. Then we have our warm front, an invisible line between a cold and warm air mass, one where the warm air is taking over the cool air. And now we have our cold front, an invisible line between a cold and warm air mass, one where the cold air is taking over the warm air. So if you ever see a weather map with different front signs, you should know that a warm front is when it's red with these circle-like features on the line. A cold front is blue with these triangular features on its line. But we have our stationary front, the line where cold air mass and warm air mass meet, but neither one takes over each other. That's both circles and triangles. Now, let me quickly do a quick diagram of a warm and a cool front. So let's have our invisible line. You guys can see it, but let's pretend it's invisible. We have our warm front. So we have our warm air mass right over here. And then we have some over here as well. We also have a cool air mass, which is going to be in blue. We have some over here, and we have some here. So if you know what this front is, I just drew a small front diagram. Who remembers what this front is? Okay, type your answer in the chat. What type of front do you think it is? A warm front, cool front, or stationary? You can do A, B, or C. Exactly, it is C. It is a stationary front because neither of them is going above each other, neither one, but they are colliding. But what about this one? We have we have a nice warm front and we have a cool front, a warm air mass and a cool air mass. Which is this? Type in the chat. A warm front. And of course, we know our cool front will be above. Okay, but let's continue with a trope. It is a large area of low pressure, which means a stormy area. Now we have our dew point. A dew point is the temperature of air when water vapor starts to be pulled or condensed out of thin air. The condensation drops onto the ground, usually late at night, into the early morning hours. The more moisture there is in the air, the higher the dew point will be. So the next is humidity, how humid the air is. It's how much water vapor is in the air, how much water is in the air. This is our water cycle diagram. Now, if you are here for our second lesson, session number 2, we did our water cycle, our hydrologic cycle, which was about, in that lesson, we talked about evaporation, condensation, precipitation, transpiration, runoff, groundwater, aquifers, etc. So if you were not here for that lesson, that's okay. But we just basically talked about how evaporation occurs when when the water, it's a liquid, it's in the liquid form, but when it's heated enough, it becomes a gas. Then it condenses to form clouds and precipitates into snow, sleet, rain, and hail. And it can go a couple different ways. It can either go by transpiration from groundwater aquifers. It can also just go into groundwater aquifers, or it can just surface runoff. So I'll be posting that lesson on the Science Prodigy Facebook page very soon. Now let's keep on going with today's lesson. What makes up our climate system? So the atmosphere is the air we breathe and the thin layer of gases that surround the Earth, its atmosphere. Then we have oceans. Almost 70% of Earth's surface is covered with oceans, and they change according to changes in the atmosphere. Then we have land, which is geographical features that influence weather. We have ice. 3% of the Earth's surface is ice, which helps in regulating the temperatures. And we have our biosphere, which is the part of Earth that supports all forms of life. So we can also think of this as the 4 spheres. So if you don't know about that, I can talk more about the 4 spheres in a later lesson. We have our hydrosphere, we have our atmosphere, we have our biosphere, and we have our geosphere. So I can talk more about those later, but I will just quickly say that our hydrosphere has hydro. We already know that it's the sphere of water, our water. Then we have our atmosphere. We know that for atmosphere is air. Then we have our biosphere. Biosphere is bio, which is for life. And then lastly, we have our geosphere, which includes the Earth and all the rocks on Earth. So that is the geosphere. So I will talk more in depth about those in possibly a later lesson. Now let's talk about the types of climate. There are lots of ways that scientists use to describe different types of climate. One way is to divide up climates into 5 types. Our types are tropical, dry, mild, cold, and polar. There are also many other categories, including rainforests, deserts, tundra, savanna, and steppe, which we talked about in our habitat and ecosystem lessons. So if those will be posted also on the Facebook page if you have missed those lessons. So why is it important? It is also very important because it determines what kind of plants and animals live in a specific area. For example, polar bears need a cold climate. They would be terribly hot and would die very quickly in the desert because they are covered with lots of fur, a thick layer of a coating of fur, which is used to keep them warm. But if they have that in the desert, they'll overheat and then they'll die. And when climate starts to change, animals and plants become endangered and can soon die and get extinct. That's climate change. What is climate change? It describes the change in the average conditions, such as temperature, rainfall, and those in a region over a long period of time. For example, 20,000 years ago, much of the USA was covered in glaciers. Now we have a warmer climate and fewer glaciers. So some effects of global warming are rising sea levels, shrinking mountain glaciers, ice melting at a faster rate than usual in Greenland, Antarctica, and the Arctic, and changes in the flower and plant blooming times. So if you might not think about it that well, but actually this is very important because if we have rising sea levels, so if we already think about it, how do sea levels rise? So that I will talk about a little bit more, which is important, but if we think about it, we have our ocean. It's all because of the ocean, our ocean, and our other topic, our other example. So we have our ocean here, and we also have our glaciers. So this is a terrible drawing, I'm sorry. But let's say that our glaciers, our mountain glaciers, are melting because, of course, we have our sun. And our sun is very hot and it transmits heat to our Earth. But the Earth is covered by an atmosphere. So I'll talk a little bit more about this atmosphere later. But this causes our Earth to get very warm, melting these glaciers. And these glaciers then form into water because it's ice and its liquid form is water. And once it flows into the ocean, of course, there's more water in the ocean. But that's not it. Oceans are like a big heat container. When oceans, what they do is that it sucks up heat. Oceans will suck up extra heat, but by doing that, what it will do is it will also expand. Because as we talked about in our previous lessons about states of matter as well, we talked about how when you change from a solid to liquid or liquid to gas, the space in between each molecules will expand, also creating, in this case, the ocean to expand. That also means that our ice is melting faster. But if you didn't know, it also causes a change in the flower and plant blooming times. Because it's getting hotter, plants and flowers will think, oh my God, it's so hot, because usually it blooms in spring or summer. But it might bloom in the winter because it's excessive hot. It's too hot. But once they bloom and it's snowing, they'll usually die. And also this is terrible for the ecosystem because as we learned in our first lesson, our very first session on adaptations, bears hibernate. And bears also eat insects and fruits and berries. And if these berries bloom early, then they'll fall early. And the bears won't have food. So that will also cause bears to die. So it's very important that climate change will not, so climate change can be good in some ways, but it's more bad than good. What is it doing to our Earth? So some parts of Earth are warming faster, but on average, the global air temperatures have gone up 2 degrees. And that is a lot. You might think it's only 2 degrees, but it is terribly hot if you think about it. Most people are concerned about this warming, as if it continues to warm, there will be way more rainfall during storms and hurricanes, and droughts and heat waves will also become more intense. Hurricanes and thunderstorms will also be more common. So why is it happening? Certain gases in our Earth's atmosphere block heat from escaping, which is called the greenhouse effect. Now, if you think about it, that's also good. It keeps us warm. Well, it does. And that's why the greenhouse effect is like a 50-50. We can think of it as good and bad. But so why is it good? Because if there isn't a greenhouse effect, then it will be too cold on Earth, and then we'll all freeze or have hypothermia and die. But thank God it's there to take in heat. But why is it bad? Because too much greenhouse gases, too much heat will cause it to become too warm on Earth. So there has to be an equal amount of greenhouse gases, which create the greenhouse effect. So human activities like burning fuels or powering factories are examples, and they release greenhouse gases. So this matters because oceans, lands, airs, and plants and animals, all from the sun, have an effect on one another. And that gives us our global climate. But what are some examples of greenhouse gases? So the first one is carbon dioxide. When you breathe in oxygen. But when you breathe out, that's carbon dioxide you're breathing out. You're thinking, oh my God, we're breathing out carbon dioxide. Why? But isn't that good? Because that's also helping plants to grow, because in photosynthesis, plants need carbon dioxide. That's good for plants. But the thing is that we are chopping down trees, and deforestation, that is also causing greenhouse gases and greenhouse effect. By cutting down trees, we are causing our Earth to warm. How? That doesn't make sense. Just because we're cutting down a tree means that the Earth is getting warmer? What? Because it takes in carbon dioxide. And if we breathe in too much carbon dioxide and factories release too much, there won't be enough plants to take it all in. Another greenhouse gas is funny because you might not think of it as a greenhouse gas, is water vapor. What? How is water vapor a greenhouse gas? But actually, water vapor is also there to trap in heat. Now, the third one is a funny example. It's methane. Now, how is methane released? The funniest way that methane is released into the Earth's atmosphere is cow farts. Cows actually fart out methane. And that's why the Earth is getting way more methane, and that's why there's way more greenhouse gases. But we can't stop cows from farting, of course. But it also depends on what we feed them, how the temperature is outside. That's why we have to stop deforestation. So how does it work? Too much greenhouse gases will block the heat. It will create a layer. Now the temperature will be radiated off the greenhouse gases, but some of it will also be reflected inside of the Earth. Now it will spread around the Earth, causing it to warm up. But of course, there's too much greenhouse gases, which will let too much radiation, too much heat to come inside, which is why it's also bad. Okay, so this diagram, we have it being reflected out, but also it is also absorbed and can be spread out. So what are the main causes? Greenhouse gases, as we talked, deforestation, cutting down too much trees, and man-made pollutants, which is usually when factories release lots of pollution. Effects include increasing sea levels, melting of glaciers, more heat waves, more droughts, and more hurricanes. threats to ecosystems, less crop production, meaning less food, meaning that we can die, and also impact on our health. Deforestation, as I talked before, it absorbs lots of carbon dioxide, and the Amazon rainforest, it's being cut down super fast, which is also taking away our carbon dioxide supply, which takes it in. So without that, so much carbon dioxide will be released that there's going to be too much greenhouse gases, and too much greenhouse gases will always mean too much greenhouse, the ozone layer will be very large. So how can we help prevent it? Stop littering by respecting Mother Nature. That also helps plants to survive. Picking flowers is bad because, of course, it's used to take in our carbon dioxide. Instead, we should grow more of them. We should be kind to animals and be safe for wild animals. And we should not waste water and food, because water, there's a limited supply. If we use it all, there won't be enough water, and eventually we'll die. We also have to save our natural resources, save electricity. Remember to turn off lights, television, and other devices when not in use. Use heater or air conditioners when necessary. It's okay to open the windows if it does get a little bit hot. Or when they are cold, just put on a sweater or socks instead of a big heater. The Ice Age is when Earth climate has cooled considerably. During these times, ice caps or glaciers covering the North Pole has grown to encompass most of the Northern Hemisphere, which is why we don't want a big ice age, but we also don't want too much, the Earth to get too warm. So here are a couple fun facts. I'll only say a couple of them. That the wettest place on Earth is Mawsinarm, Assam, India. The driest is the Atacama Desert in Chile. The hottest place is the Nakil Depression in Ethiopia and Africa. And the coldest place is in Antarctica. Now, this is also pretty important, which are the layers of our atmosphere. Our troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, exosphere, and tropopause. So, our troposphere is the first layer, which contains half of Earth's atmosphere. Weather occurs in this layer. Stratosphere is the second layer, and many airplanes fly in this. Mesosphere is the third layer. Meteors or rock fragments burn up the mesosphere. Thermosphere is the fourth layer. It's the layer with auroras, aurora borealis, and space shuttle orbits. The exosphere is the fifth and last layer. This is where atmosphere merges into space. It is extremely thin. But what about our tropopause? It is the atmospheric boundary located between troposphere and stratosphere. So we can think of it in this first diagram. We have a troposphere where our planes and hot air balloons are. Our stratosphere where our jets and extraplanes are. Our mesosphere with our big aurora borealis are. Our thermosphere with our satellites. And our exosphere, which is where our end is between space and Earth's atmosphere. What is the ozone layer? It is ozone is the natural gas found in two different layers of the atmosphere. The layer around Earth's surface, otherwise known as a troposphere. Bad ozone dirties the air and helps make smog. So it is forming a thin shield high up in the sky and is located in the stratosphere. Too much UV can cause bad health effects like skin cancer, eye damage, and can make you sick. What is erosion? Erosion is also pretty important. This is one of our last slides. It is the wearing away of land by water, ice, or wind. Soil erosion is a natural process. Please do not keep on raising your hand over and over. I will come to you later. In our first picture, we have our Grand Canyon. We can clearly see effects of erosion. We also have Antelope Canyon, not shown here, but that is also a big effect of erosion. Our last slide is acid rain. It is rain, snow, or fog polluted by acid in the atmosphere, and that damages the environment. Two common pollutants that acidify rain are sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide. When these are released in the atmosphere, they can be carried over long distances by winds, and the environment cannot neutralize the rain being deposited, and damage is occurred. And that's in our second picture. We can see how acid rain occurs trees. So everyone, that was today's lesson. Now do not leave yet. Please don't leave. I will post our test link in the chat. You will click on the link if clickable. If not, you can highlight the link, copy it, and then paste it. Take the quiz, and I will meet you guys back in 5 minutes. Don't forget to come back here. Also, one more thing, I highly recommend all of you to try the quiz. It's not completely mandatory. You don't have to do it, but I highly recommend you doing it. It will help you become smarter. It'll help you memorize whatever you learn. So I will post a link, and you should try your best. Okay, guys. So I think we are running out of time. So I have ended I will now go over the quiz. If you need more time that you don't have to completely listen, you can listen to this, but you can take the quiz again if you would like to. But right now, we're just going to go over the quiz, and then we'll go to do a demonstration. So, what is your name? So, of course, we are class. So, which is not included in the weather? Fog conditions, average humidity. That's already wrong because we know that it's climate that is average. Weather is permanent. True or false? False. It's climate that is permanent. Climate is a pattern of weather. Already we know, as soon as we see a long time pattern of weather, it's true. Which is not something that makes up the weather. Blizzards, snow, and sunshine all make the weather. Greenhouse gases do not. Which heat transport helps to cause puffy clouds to form in warm air masses? Horizontal, vertical, northern, or southern? We have our vertical. What is the science of weather called? Weatherology? No, it's meteorology. What is used to measure how fast the wind is blowing? The answer is an anemometer. Sorry. Okay. The Doppler effect is the change in what? The answer is the frequency of sound. A stationary front is when a warm front and cool front meet, but neither takes over the other. A stormy area is called a stormy area, a storm front, an air mass, it's a trough. When the temperature of the air starts to be condensed, it is called air mass, storm front, trough, a dew point. The answer is a dew point. That's why in the morning on grass we can see dew. Which does not make up the climate system? The answer is the meteorosphere. I made that up. Which is not a main type of climate? The answer is a warm climate. There is no such thing as warm climate, while there is a such thing as a cold climate. Which is not a way that global warming affects the Earth. The answer is more severe earthquakes. Global warming does not cause more earthquakes. Certain gases are causing the atmosphere to block heat from escaping, which is true. So greenhouse gases are good because they keep us warm, but too less causes global warming. Now we already know that the first part is right, but the next part is wrong. So that means that the third one is right. Greenhouse gases are good because they keep us warm, but too much causes global warming. Which is not a greenhouse gas. Oxygen is not a greenhouse gas, whereas water vapor, methane, and carbon dioxide are. Which two are not in order? The answer are the thermosphere and tropopause. We can see that they are not in order. The thermosphere is not supposed to be there, and the stratosphere and the tropopause is not supposed to be there either. Which two substances acidify rain? Hydrogen fluoride, citric acid, nitrogen oxide, dust, sulfur dioxide, lemon juice, and calcium hydroxide. So we already talked about sulfur dioxide, definitely, and nitrogen oxide. Okay, let's just quickly make sure this is all correct. If there's anything wrong, let's review it. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I forgot to press thermosphere. Otherwise, that is correct. So otherwise, we got that all correct. Good job, everyone. for doing the quiz and getting a pretty good score. Now, I think we're a little bit over time, but that should be okay. Now, let's do today's demonstration. Okay. Okay, so we talked about weather and climate. So how can we make a demonstration? So first, you might have heard of a lava lamp experiment. But what we can do is we can change it so it can become a snowstorm. So to do this, we'll first need our oil and our water. We'll also need some white food dye or white paint, either one works, and some Alka-Seltzer. So this you can find at the pharmacy. It doesn't cost that much. It's okay. It's used for stomach problems. And it fizzes and causes a reaction with water. So we'll start by pouring about 3/4 of our glass full with oil. The main point is that the ratio of oil to water should be 3:1. So now we'll pour our water in. Now already, just by pouring our water, if you guys were here for our density lesson, we learned that water is more dense than oil, and that's why water goes to the bottom while oil still floats on top. Next, let's add our snow, which will be some paint. So we're just going to add a little bit on each side, so a couple of drops. So it is more dense than our oil, and so it's more dense than our water as well. Okay, now we are going to use our Alka-Seltzer. So I think 1 tablet should be okay. They're pretty big, so they will cause a big reaction too. Okay. So by putting in, what will happen is now we can see that our Alka-Seltzer does react with our water. And what it does is that it releases some carbon dioxide. And it will carry some white paint to the top because it becomes less dense. So we can see this is white. It's just because of the oil, it's a little bit yellow. It's really cool, and it is fizzing out of the cup right now. You can try this with different colors. You can make a lava lamp out of this. But if you want to get the best results, you can use baby oil. So that's oil that is clear. But on back to our why it works like this. The Alka-Seltzer creates carbon dioxide, which hooks up with the paint. It goes, because it's less dense than the oil, it floats to the top, but then it pops at the top and the carbon dioxide is back released. But the paint is again more dense, so it falls back to the bottom. So we have our nice little lava lamp, which is in the show of our snowstorm. But now let's talk about clouds. Now, this is also useful for tomorrow's lesson, which will be on clouds. But clouds, we know that cold water is more dense than warm water. But if you would know that actually by putting cold water in a cloud, it will fall slower than warm water. So let's first get our cold water. For this, I'm going to use a blue dye. And then let's see what happens once we pour some in. On 1/2. So it will be heavy. It does take some time to come down. It does create these cotton balls, which are our shape of our clouds. It is heavier. So we know that that's an example that shows that we know that cold water is more dense than our warm water. But what about our warm water? How fast does that go through? So now we'll use really hot water. This is extremely hot. Be extremely careful while doing this. This is almost boiling water. So let's pour some into our glass. And let's use red fruit dye. Once again, parent supervision while using the hot water because it is extremely hot. Trust me while I say extremely. Now, once we pour it in our cotton, which is our cloud, we instantly see that it straight away does not fall fast. It is soaked up more by our cloud. Why? Because we already know that when evaporation occurs, it causes clouds because it condenses. It is hot water, it's hot water vapor. It goes up to our clouds, it goes up to the topmost layer of our atmosphere, it gets cold, and then it becomes clouds. But if we make it warm again, it's not going to precipitate. That's why cold water will rather precipitate than warm water, because of course we know that clouds are formed by cold water. So that was our demonstrations for today. I will post the poll right now. So here is today's poll. Once you are done, I have a quick announcement. So we are holding our science fair, which is next week, next Friday or next Saturday. Next Friday and Saturday for those in our US, and next Saturday, Sunday for those out. So hopefully you guys will participate. I will quickly say that so the forms, there's an enrollment sheet, which is our form, which is a form. It is on the Facebook page. Now, the thing is that we are only allowing 20 people to demonstrate and to be in our 25 people to be in our science fair, this section. There will be another one hopefully in the future if a lot of people liked it. How it works is that you will demonstrate a topic. I will talk more about it, and each person has about 5 minutes to show what they are going to do. So you can show either on slides, a diorama, or a demonstration. One more thing, it is not one day. We have 2 whole days. So if you cannot come to one day, you can try to come to the other one. So we already have about 10 people and 15 people who have enrolled. So we only have 5 to 10 more spots. So try to enroll faster or you'll be able to do it next time. So I've ended the polling and I have shared the results. Yes, I will show everyone, and I will also show our science fair I'll post it on our Facebook page so everyone else can see what you guys did. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining today's lesson, and I will see you all next time. Okay then, bye guys.